Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by. Welcome to the Diversibility Heritage Month, an event featuring Jimmy Choi on Parkinson's disease. During the presentation, all participants on the phone will be in a listen-only mode. For the conference rooms, please mute your line if you're not speaking. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded Monday, October 8, 2018. I would now like to turn the conference over to Chris Van Buren. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, operator, and welcome, everybody. Good morning. I had to look to make sure that everybody actually, it was morning for everyone, because we have such a great collection of locations ready for this event, and I want to say that that's absolutely fabulous. So first off, my name is Chris Van Buren, and I'm the Chief Risk Officer for TIAA. But more importantly, I'm the new executive sponsor for Diversibility's Employee Resource Group. And I have to say, this resource group is incredibly special to me. When I heard about it, I thought, this is a fabulous opportunity for the organization to get everyone together and to talk about issues that are really on the minds of parents and caregivers across the organization. So for me, for the past 20 years, my wife and I have raised two boys with learning disabilities. And I'm happy to say that they have achieved beyond their wildest dreams, and we're really happy to have helped them achieve all that they have. My oldest is 22, my youngest is 19, and I couldn't be more proud of them. But I do recognize the challenges that parents and caregivers have had to overcome in order to make that happen. And so having the resource group here and it being a resource for everyone within the organization is absolutely fantastic, and I feel very honored and blessed to be part of it. So first off, the Diversibilities Resource Group was designed to cover three areas of focus. First, to be an advocate for those with disabilities. I think that's very important. That's part of my role, to make sure that we are advocating the purpose of this ERG at the very top of the organization. So that's my job. Second, to share resources to support those with disabilities. I know that over the past 2 decades, my wife and I have had access to resources, but we know that they're not always broadly available. And so making sure that people understand what resources are available and then connecting them with those resources is absolutely crucial crucial for this resource group. And then third, to provide education and awareness about Diversibilities. And so this particular event is very focused on the education pillar. Right? So again, I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to kick off this event for you and for me. And so today we're going to focus on Parkinson's. Representatives from the Michael J. Fox Foundation will share their expertise on Parkinson's. Jimmy Choi will share his incredible and inspiring story. And Jimmy's wife, Cheryl, will speak to us from the perspective of a caregiver. And as I mentioned, caregivers and parents and people who are focused on Diversibilities are very central to my life, and hopefully to everyone who we touch as part of the resource group. So next, I'll hand it over to the Michael J. Fox Foundation, Stephanie Paddock and Veronique Kiefer.
Hello. We also have our colleague Catherine from another side. I think this is incredible that you're able to connect to so many people across the country. Two of my favorite Michael J. Fox comments Cures aren't going to fall down from the sky. We have to climb up and get them. And we only can't if we don't. And Jimmy Choi, who you're going to hear from today, I think beautifully embodies the spirit of both of those ideas, as well as this concept of diverse abilities. What a wonderful project. I have worked for the Michael J. Fox Foundation for 18 years, and I have been inspired and uplifted by the experience of watching a tiny startup become an organization that's able to change the course of disease and affect millions of lives. We truly have a very innovative approach to disease research funding, extremely collaborative, where there are collaborations from academia and pharma and every step along the disease funding pipeline, as well as with researchers from Parkinson's disease and from other related diseases across the globe and the patient community. And it is making a difference. We try to combine science with business innovation, really have a bird's eye view of what's happening in the field, and prioritize those steps that have the potential to move the disease in an entirely different place. And it's working, and I'm going to share just a little bit about that. Just as a point of reference, because maybe everyone that's listening doesn't have Parkinson's in their life, but within their families. But it is the largest growing neurological disorder, and by 2040, there are to be expected to be 13 million people who live with it. So it has a potential to affect all of us, and there is tremendous overlap in the research actually with all of the progressive neurological diseases, and kind of what seems to be at the core of what's happening within Parkinson's. There's a particular protein that errantly is misfolding and aggregating and just sticking together in the brain in clumps, and that process happens within other neurological diseases too. So our wins will become wins across many neurological diseases. At the Fox Foundation, we truly believe that it is our obligation to drive forward the momentum that exists right now, all of the progress that exists in driving new treatments forward and really a cure and getting Parkinson's off the face of the planet. We are obsessed with impact and urgency. We, on purpose, don't have an endowment. We don't sit on any financial reserves. We quickly try and turn over any contribution and deploy it to actual research within months of having received it. And we recognize that this process couldn't happen actually without groups like you, without the community being behind it and involved. Both patients who are involved in research, who are involved in advocacy, and who are spreading the message that progress is being made and a message of hope within their communities. It was always Michael's dream that the community itself, people with Parkinson's themselves, be part of getting us to a cure. And that is happening. The science is literally exploding right now. It is unbelievable. The entire therapeutic development pipeline is filled with research, and there's so much in clinical trials, and not just in clinical trials. In the past 4 years, 7 new therapies, motor and non-motor, have come to market, 2 new ways of doing deep brain stimulation, and within the next few months there will be 2 additional therapies, which is amazing. These therapies, many of them address symptoms, just living and having a better life with Parkinson's disease, having a better quality of life. We also look at some of the unmet needs that happen in Parkinson's, such as depression and anxiety, swallowing, speech, gait imbalance, constipation, and we believe in keeping the field strong. So we are also supporting the development of new movement disorder specialists, scientists, researchers who will be out there in the field, because it's an incredible time to be involved in Parkinson's. Parkinson's, we don't want it, but if we've got to have it, it's really a golden age of research. And so this is attractive to researchers, and there'll be 20 new movement disorder specialists by 2020. But what I really want to talk about is really the holy grail for us, which is disease modification. Let's get this disease off the planet Earth, and let's get to the heart of what's causing it and how to slow it, stop it, reverse it, get people back to where they once were. And actually within this area, there is so much promise and progress that this is what this is what kind of keeps me going. I referenced this protein before that is clumping together. This was not something we really knew about when the Fox Foundation came on the scene, and we can't take full credit. It's the entire field of researchers, but we're instrumental in trying to get therapies to knock out those clumps. One approach is actually a vaccine approach, so that the body itself would have specially designed antibodies that knows how to go in and conquer it and break those clumps down and get that brain environment healthy again so that it doesn't continue to progress. Also within genetics, so 20 years ago, genetics was not thought to really be a field of study for Parkinson's disease, and it's still not. Still, Parkinson's is sporadic. It's not like hereditary. If your grandfather has it, then you should be quite concerned. But there are genetic risk factors that, as we study them, we realize they have implications for the whole field. There could be therapies for anyone with Parkinson's that have come out of the learnings from all of these genetic ways of having Parkinson's, LRRK2, GBA, alpha-synuclein. We also try and repurpose, when there's potential, drugs that are already FDA approved that have implications for Parkinson's. There are heart disease drugs, cancer drugs, diabetes drugs, and even antioxidant therapies that have potential to help people with Parkinson's, and it's kind of like an efficient kind of lift if we can transfer it to this disease. As we have so many therapies now in clinical trials, it is critical that we're also developing measures that we're having impact within the brain. We just can't look at it and see that we're healing those brain cells unless we have ways of doing that. Measures, brain scans, biological measures like a cholesterol test or a pregnancy test that tells you not only are you halting it, you're reversing it, and you're actually healing and regenerating and making the brain a healthy environment. And so we launched in 2010 a really a groundbreaking biomarkers study called the Parkinson's Progression Markers Initiative. We have thousands of samples from individuals in the first 5 years of disease that have mapped out the progression of what it looks like to have Parkinson's disease, and that data is available to the entire scientific community, and it's ongoing. That data has been downloaded 1.8 million times because of its worth to the scientific community. Along those same lines and along Michael's vision of like the patients have a lot to say about their disease. They have a PhD, they have a personal history of disease, and they are experts in their own experience. Can we use that for science? We decided yes, we can. We launched the Fox Insight program. Essentially, it is an online clinical trial in which every 3 months individuals with Parkinson's as well as healthy controls can fill out surveys, detailed surveys about their experience with Parkinson's disease, and it shows real time what it is to live with Parkinson's disease. 25,000 people have enrolled in that since we launched it a year ago. We hope to be at 40,000 by the end of next year, truly uniting a whole community of people and using that data for science. I'm going to close here and turn this over to some other inspirational folks who are doing amazing things within their power to move this all forward. Again, if I could leave you with anything, it's that there's momentum, there is promise and hope, and we're extremely encouraged.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Stephanie Paddock. I am the director of Team Fox at the Fox Foundation. And I haven't been at the Fox Foundation 18 years, but I have been there 8, working very closely with Team Fox, which is our grassroots fundraising program. And as Veronica mentioned, it's really going to take the community playing their role in funding research and moving the dial. And that's where Team Fox comes in. So back in 2006, we realized that there was community members across the country and across the globe that were wanting to play their part and wanting to get involved. And we were receiving checks saying, I had a bake sale and I raised $100, or I threw a golf tournament and here are the proceeds. And kind of from that response from the community, Team Fox was born. And it's really a way for people around the globe to get involved, whether it's through running a marathon. Those of you here in Chicago maybe watched the Chicago Marathon yesterday. We had 100 runners who together have raised over $230,000, which is incredible. I was one of them. It was not my best showing. Jimmy came out and was on the course with me for a bit, which was great to kind of pep me up. But we have people running marathons. We have people doing kind of everything under the sun, from, as I said, bake sales, golf tournaments, galas, participating in marathons, 5Ks, kind of you name it. There's no way that you can be stopped from getting involved with Team Fox. So I encourage everyone, if they're if they have a connection to Parkinson's, or even if they just want to play their part, there are thousands of different ways to get involved. Actually, Jimmy, who you'll hear from, hosts his own 5K in Bolingbrook, which is incredible. We have people doing, hosting their own races, or, signing up and fundraising for races. So I really encourage everyone to, get involved in any way that they possibly can. And Catherine, I see you over there. If you want to say hi and talk a little bit about what you do at the foundation.
Thanks, Steph. My name is Catherine Wesley, and I work on the advancement team at the Michael J. Fox Foundation. I'm actually based in Charlotte. Our office is, of course, in New York. We have about 125 employees there. And I made the move to Charlotte almost 2 years ago and have been working remotely here from Charlotte. I work with families in the Southeast to support the foundation. And we really treat our supporters like investors in a cure, and we aim to get back to them with the impact that they're having on research, letting them know kind of the latest and greatest in what's happening, and provide them with resources that might make a difference for their family. So excited to be here today, and thanks everyone for getting us together.
Thanks, Catherine. Good to see you.
You too.
The one thing that I will just kind of leave you with, as part of Team Fox, what is so incredible is that 100% of the proceeds that are raised go directly to research. So the entire program is underwritten, and everything that comes in, small donations, large donations, everything that comes in through this grassroots program goes directly to research. And to date, since 2006 when it launched, we've raised $65 million, which is really, really incredible. And we have, people in the community like Chuck, who's helped put this together, and Jimmy, who you'll hear from, who are to thank for that as well. So, again, thank you so much for having us today.
I'm tired. So my name is Chuck Kissler. I work in investment risk here in Nuveen. I'm going to tell you a little story about how I met Jimmy, and then I will turn it over to him. So to piggyback off of the Team Fox thing, there's this obnoxious race in Disney World called the Dopey Challenge. And it is a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, and a full marathon in 4 consecutive days. So about 4 years ago, I proceeded to run this. And on, I think it was a Friday night, so after the 10K, we were at a meet and greet with the people from all over the country that were running in Disney World, and with the with Team Fox, and we're all sitting around, and I really didn't know who. I met Jimmy, Chuck, nice to meet you. And then earlier that day, there was a gentleman running that had a full exoskeleton. Like, he was a vet, and 2 prosthetic legs, 2 prosthetic arms, and he was running a 10K. And we're all sitting around, and Jimmy asked the group if everybody saw him, or if anybody saw him. And we all nodded, yeah, like we saw him. And Jimmy proceeds to say, "What's my excuse?" Like, talking to himself. And I'm thinking, who is this guy that just challenged me? Like, why do I have an excuse to do anything? But it wasn't that, it was, what excuse do I have to not do anything, whether it be to be a better employee, to be a better son, taking care of a parent with Parkinson's, to be a bigger advocate for Team Fox and Michael J. Fox Foundation. So those words still today kind of give me chills every time I think of that moment that I met Jimmy. And then we went for ice cream afterwards. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Jimmy, a advocate, an athlete, and I am fortunate and honored to call him a friend. So.
very much. Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's well. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Nuveen and TIA, for allowing me the opportunity to share my story. It really is a privilege and an honor for me to have this opportunity. Now, I always get a little nervous when speaking in front of a crowd, especially in 5 different cities at the same time. So, I was going over this presentation with my wife the other day, and she said to me, don't try to be too charming, right? Don't try to be too funny or too intellectual. Just go out there and be yourself. I can do that. So again, my name is Jimmy Choi. I am 42 years old. I am a father of 2, and I was diagnosed with the young onset Parkinson's when I was only 27 years old back in 2003. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm really just a guy trying to stay ahead of my disease. But I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to compete on American Ninja Warrior 2 years ago in 2017. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with American Ninja Warrior, the goal was to find my way across 6 obstacles. Okay, and those obstacles, the skills required to get across these obstacles range from balance, core strength, upper body, things that are not usually known to be associated with a person with Parkinson's. Now, despite that, in 2017, I made it all the way to the 3rd obstacle. It was called the broken pipes before falling. Now, considering that this is also the same obstacle that took out 64 other contestants, half my age and the prime of their lives, I don't think I can blame Parkinsons for that fall. Now, I have to work harder and to try to get a second chance and hopefully get on again in 2018. And just this past June, I did get my second chance. And once again, I made it to the 3rd obstacle. This time, I was taken out by an obstacle known as the wheel flip. Once again, finishing in the top 50% of the field. So, one can say that I should be proud. This time, though, it was a little bit different. I was stronger. I had better technique. And I know that this time Parkinson's symptoms got the best of me and prevented me from advancing. In my mind, I made all the right moves to move forward. When I watched the video, it was obvious. My old friend rigidity showed up. I didn't advance because of that, which means there's only one thing left for me to do, right? And I think we all know what that is try to get back on next year and take care of some unfinished business. Now, people ask me all the time, Jimmy, how do you do it? How do you do the things that you do while dealing with Parkinson's? Well, my story begins, as I said, back in 2003. I was 27, and I had just gotten married to my wife. She was my high school sweetheart. And I was working as a technology consultant at the time, at the height of the dot-com boom, actually. Cheryl and I had just gotten married. We embarked on a new chapter of our lives, and all of a sudden, we were grown-ups. We had a mortgage. Right? We had car payments. I mean, we've actually entered adulthood. Now, my parents always said to me, when you get married and you're planning to start a new family, the first thing you need to do is go out and buy life insurance. So I was young. I was healthy. I was a scratch golfer at the time. I played, even played in a few qualifying tournaments for the PGA Tour. I was 2 strokes away from a Western Open. That was the closest that I got. So that's still a tough moment for me. But, I was healthy. I walked 18 holes 4 to 5 times a week. I figured, I was in good physical condition and the health insurance was going to be a cinch, right? So my insurance physical started out as routinely as possible. It's blood pressure, blood draw, height, weight check, all that good stuff. But that's where the routine ended. See, the nurse performing my physical checked the dilation of my pupils, and then started asking me all kinds of questions about drugs and alcohol. So once we ruled out that was the case, she turned her attention to some physical movement. She had me get up. She had me walk across the room and come back. She asked me to do a chicken dance. So for those of you who aren't familiar, that's one of the tests that they give people with Parkinson's. I didn't know that back then. And there's some other tests that she gave me that I can only describe as sobriety-like. Like balancing on lines, fingers to nose. Now, she asked me questions like, do I have stiffness? Do I have balance issues? Unexplained twitches. I mean, Sure. I was a busy guy. Stiffness and slowness after walking 18 holes of golf and carrying 40 pounds on your back, you're going to be stiff, right? It's soreness. Unexplained twitches, well, stress at work, right? There was everything and anything in everyday life that I can use as an excuse to explain anything that was abnormal away in everyday life. Now, she explained that I'm not here to tell you anything. All I can tell you is that I work for a neurologist as my day job, and I do insurance physicals on the side. And you should talk to your physician about the things that we talked about. And of course, that piqued my interest. So I talked to my primary care physician, and after months and additional weeks of referrals and appointments with neurologists, sure enough, after all that time, it was confirmed through my reaction to medication, and also after a longer term, a DAT scan, that it was confirmed, and I was told that, Jimmy, you have Parkinson's. Now, up to this point, I was so sure that nothing was wrong. In fact, I was in such denial that I even kept that from my wife for a few more months. It was only that I decided that I had to take medication that I finally told her that I was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Now, medication allowed me to live life as usual. It masked the symptoms, and it allowed me to ignore my progression. I did nothing, absolutely nothing. I didn't even do research. I wasted the first 8 years of my diagnosis hiding from it. That's 8 years of time that I've lost, where I could have been doing something to help myself. But as time went on, I couldn't hide it much longer. My symptoms began to progress, and one by one, they became harder and harder to hide. Each symptom felt like an extra weight or extra burden that I had to carry to lead just a normal life, or a quote-unquote normal life. Now, at this point in my life, I was 35 years old, and I was unable to hide my tremors. I was unable to sleep or to relax from stiffness and cramps. I was unable to write clearly or focus at work. I was unable to keep my cool. I was unable to smile. And probably the worst of all, I was unable to play with my kids. It's gotten to the point now where I had to use a cane to walk. And because of the limited amount of activity that I was getting, I started to gain a lot of weight. I weighed up to 240 pounds at one point. And out of frustration, I was yelling and snapping at my family for no good reason. And when I yelled, I could hear myself. It's sort of an out-of-body experience. I could hear myself yelling, and I wanted to stop myself, but I couldn't. Things were beginning to snowball, and there had to be a breaking point, some type of rock-bottom moment. That moment came for me when I was carrying my son, who was 10 months old, down the stairs, and the two of us fell down a full flight of stairs. Now, thankfully, he was unhurt. I try to keep him above my body as much as I can, but physically, I was bruised, but mentally, from that moment on, I would be different. Now, I was 35 years old, and I ignored my situation, and it became a burden to my family. I was putting my kids in danger, and instead of helping Shiro raise a family, I was becoming a problem. Now, this was not the life that I intended to lead, and this is certainly not the life that I wanted to live. Now, like many out there, I scoured the internet looking for the cure. Now, let's remember, this is before Google times. Okay, so I had to ask Jeeves, and showing my age here. I had to ask Jeeves, and we had to dial into AOL. Right? But, I was looking for the cure, but sadly, I couldn't find it out on the interwebs. But you know what I did find, though, that there was a lot of clinical trials out there, and that they were all starving for participants, for volunteers. And that was slowing a progression to the cure, right? If there's no volunteers, they can't move forward, and we're delaying ourselves to the cure. So I decided that that's how I'm going to help. I know I'm not smart enough to find the cure. I know I didn't have the money to fund the cure, so I was going to give up my body for research and sign up for as many clinical trials as I possibly can. I ended up participating in many clinical trials, and some were as simple as asking questions. Some did involve experimental treatments. Many of them, though, have one thing in common, and that was physical activity. Now, each one of these trials, no matter how simple or how complex has some type of component associated to it. A few of those trials include physical therapy and forced exercise. It was during this process that I noticed that with extended physical therapy sessions, that the more I did, the better I felt. And slowly I started to build confidence in the way that I move. And with that confidence, I began to move more and more and more. I started doing more physical activities on my own, like walking around the block at home with family. And I was out of shape, so it wasn't as easy as possible. I was, as I thought it was, I was out of shape. I still walked with a cane. So I did what I can. I started slow, walked once around the block, and then that once became twice around the block. Soon my confidence grew and I was able to leave my cane at home. And then I started jogging around the block. And then I started adding maybe a short run. And then I started adding some distance. Half a mile became 1 mile. 1 mile became 2. And I wasn't fast, but I ended up running long enough to achieve what we call the runner's high. And that's basically the release of endorphins in the brain that makes you feel better than you really are. But it is also a good substitute for dopamine. So running became a regular routine for me, and it actually became my drug. One day on a business trip, I got on an airplane, and right there in front of me was, in the seat back pocket, was a Runner's World magazine. Now, for some reason, I felt like I should pick it up and I should read. And I flipped through to a page where there was an article in there about a gentleman with Parkinsons, and he was running a marathon. And I thought to myself, you know what? If he can do it, why can't I? So I called my wife. I was like, this guy's running a marathon. He has Parkinson's. Yes! So I called my wife and said, hey, honey, guess what? I saw this guy. He's running a marathon. You know, it's something that I think I'm going to sign up for my first 5K. So with the goal in mind, excuse me, with the goal in mind, I've never run a distance more than a couple of miles at a time up to this point in my life. So with that goal in mind, I set out to complete my first 5K. And after 3 months of training, in April of 2012, I ran that first 5K with family and friends. And witnessing all the supporters out there that day was incredible. It was clear to me at this point that I was happy. And I look back at my own journey up at this point, it's clear that my runner's high was just beginning. I didn't want to stop there, and whenever I reached a goal, I wanted to push it further. So by May, I was running 5 miles. And by June, I was running my first 10K. I kept putting one foot in front of the other. And until September of that year, in 2012, I ran my first half marathon. Now, when I crossed the finish line, I knew right away what that next step was. That next step was going to be a marathon. And I wanted to do it. And I was ambitious. I was stupid. I decided that I was going to try to get into the Chicago Marathon just a month later, after just finishing my first half marathon. There was one problem. There was 40,000 other crazy people that wanted to sign up for a marathon. 40,000 people that actually paid money to punish themselves for 26.2 miles. So the race was completely sold out. And you know what? I thought, how can I get in this race? Can I sneak on? No, that's probably not a good idea. But you know, a friend of mine reminded me that there's always ends by way of charity. So this is, I've always known about the Michael J. Fox Foundation. And this is where I really got engaged for the first time. I reached out to the Michael J. Fox Foundation and then Team Fox and asked, hey, I know it's short notice and you guys are probably all sold out, but did you happen to have a bid for the Chicago Marathon? And I was actually talking to Stephanie that first time, and she's like, hey, you know what? We've got one left. So to this day, I've always felt that that bid was meant for me. So I accepted that bid with the commitment of raising $2,000, and I had to raise that money in a month's time. I've never fundraised before, at least not to the scale, so for the first time I have to open up and share my story, because where do you guys go when you fundraise? Friends and family, right? So with the Michael J. Fox Foundation, there's the nice finishing photo, but for the first time I really had to open up. And for years to this point, at family gatherings, Christmas, Thanksgiving, meeting up with friends, there's always that elephant in the room. everybody knew something was wrong, but I never really talked about it. So you always get that, hey, Jimmy, how you doing? Right? And then, I can see in everyone's eyes, it's not a comfortable topic. So I really didn't want to, I don't know how much they want to know, so we just kept it casual. Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. And then we stare at each other for 15 seconds, just nodding. Right? And then you go your separate ways. Now you can see how over time you can become more and more distant with the people that you care about, the people that you love, your friends and your family. Because simply nobody wanted to do that awkward dance. Right? So I had to change my approach. I had to engage with people with positive thinking. Now for the first time, really, I had to share my experience by opening up. In order for me to be successful, initially, I was just trying to raise the money. But not only do I have to tell my story, but I have to tell them what I'm doing for myself that's making myself better. What am I doing to make others better? Now, I'm helping myself by exercising. This means managing my off periods, times when I'm not on medication. They have become shorter. My off periods have become shorter, and they're more manageable. I'm getting better at managing the timing of my medicine. I'm sleeping better. I'm building muscle memory that is improving my balance and my gait. I became a better version of myself, and simply by opening up, I was able to raise $5,000 in 1 month's time. Now let's think about this for a second. In 1 month's time, I raised $5,000 for research. I've opened up my life to my friends and family so that we no longer do that awkward dance. I've met other like-minded people like myself through my interactions with the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and I've also received emails from others who has seen my fundraising page posted online and saying that I am encouraging them to move. So in that 1 month's time, I've done more for myself, for our cause, than I did in the first 8 years of my diagnosis combined. Okay, now this was a mind-blowing moment for me, and it became my daily thought, right? What can I do today to make things better? What can I do today to be better than I was yesterday? Even though if it's just one more step, if it's one more rep in the gym, that is something more than I did today than I did yesterday. Now, since 2012, those one mores have led to some amazing accomplishments. This is going to sound kind of show-offy, but I think I'm okay with that. I continue to push my limits, and now I am unstoppable. Now, in 2012 to 2015, I was unstoppable between those years when I ran over 5,500 miles. In 2015, I was unstoppable when I took part in a 50-mile challenge where I had the honor of running with 5 other people with Parkinsons. Now, in 2016, I was unstoppable as I continued to run, but I started cycling, and I became the first person on record with Parkinsons to complete a 100-mile bike ride in under 5 hours. Thank you. In 2017, I was unstoppable when I competed for the first time on American Ninja Warrior. And this year, I am unstoppable as I returned to American Ninja Warrior again for the second time, and I was invited to compete at the Spartan World Championships in Tahoe just last week. Now, all in all, since 2012, my wife and I have helped raise more than $250,000 for Parkinson's research. And in total, I've completed 1 ultra marathon, 15 marathons, 103 half marathons, countless 5Ks, 10Ks, bike rides, etc. Now, the more I trained, the stronger I got. And I train with a purpose. I train to strengthen my weaknesses. For example, I mentioned early on some of my symptoms was losing balance, and I would fall. So one of the things I started doing is burpees. Now, a lot of you may know what burpees are, and those are not the funnest thing in the world to do. But this exercise itself simulates falling and then getting yourself back up. Right? So the more burpees I did, I'm training myself to fall safely, and then also building strength so that I can get up safely and continue to do what I'm doing. This helps me avoid injury as I fall, and then use all of my pushing muscles to get up. Now, if I can get better at doing burpees, I can certainly have a better chance of getting up any time that I fall. I have to be honest, though, the stronger that I got, all my symptoms didn't necessarily go away. In fact, the only difference is that my body is better adept at handling my symptoms. So progression is still happening. And, sorry, jumped ahead too early. I experienced most of the classic symptoms of Parkinson's up to this point, right? Now, living every day, Chuck, can I ask you to come up and help me here? I'm going to give you this backpack. We're going to use this chair here. I'm going to start handing you some weights, and you can throw them in. Okay. So living every day with Parkinson's, and I just wanted to give some perspective for those who doesn't experience it. So this 10-pound weight here is kind of like dealing with tremors. Imagine tying this to your hand and then trying to move your hands around. Your hands really don't go where you want them to go, and it really limits the things that you're able to do. Okay. So this is why many people with Parkinson's, when they speak, and especially early being diagnosed, we tend to hide our symptoms by clenching our fists. It actually stops the tremor when you clench your fists. Or we put our hands in our pocket. But that's what this 10-pound weight represents. We're going to throw that in here. We've got 2 more 10-pound plates here. And this represents rigidity and slowness. Now it's like tying these to your elbows or to your arms, or any limb actually. Just if you have weights on your hands, you're gonna feel stiff. You're gonna move slowly, okay? And you're fighting more than just gravity, just to move. So by improving muscle strength, which can help improve and control, and it will help me reduce the feeling of stiffness and rigidity. So I'm gonna put these in here as well. 2 more 10-pound plates. Now these represent PD gait and fatigue. So tie these weights to your legs and walk around for, I don't know, just even 10 minutes. Right? You're bound to get tired quick, and you'll be shuffling around because you're just dragging your feet wherever you go. So I train with endurance, and it helps me fight fatigue, and also help me improve muscle memory, which of course improves my gait. Let's get these in there too. Now, these next 2 are big ones, and these are posture and balance issues. Now imagine a 25-pound plate. Oh, this one's heavy. I don't think it's 25 pounds. Now imagine a 25-pound plate pressing down on your neck. All right, as people progress with Parkinson's, we start to hunch over, and my wife is always telling me, improve your posture, and she's helping me with that. But just imagine the weight pressing down on you, forcing you to hunch over, and it's not a comfortable feeling. So let's get this in there too. And another 25-pound plate represents the balance side. Put a 25-pound plate anywhere on your body, you're going to be off balanced, right? So I train with full range of motion and techniques. So everything that I do, I don't have to throw a lot of weight on. I don't have to be the fastest, but I'm just making sure that I do proper technique and proper full range of motion. These will help me with my posture in everyday life, and these will also help me with control of my body and my weight, so that I can control my balance better. Now with all these bags, with all this weight in the bag, we can zip that up if it'll fit. Even if you don't have Parkinson's, now let's imagine carrying all this weight around, okay? So even if you don't have Parkinson's, for just a few minutes, you're going to be walking around. You're not going to be thinking about going about your day. You're going to be thinking about all this weight on your back, okay? So Chuck, can you help me with this? Let's make sure it's not zipped. Oh, did we rip the...
Yeah, I think we ripped the zip.
This bag has been with me for quite a while. Let's try this again. There we go. Let's just... All right. Nice. One last... Oh, all right. Chuck, you're going to have to help me. Oh, there, we'll go this way. There we go. All right, so help me out with this. So as I mentioned, I trained with a purpose, right? So if you train yourself to handle all the extra burden. Eventually, you're going to be able to move around and do many different things physically with all this extra weight in your body. Like, let's see how this goes. Like getting, whatever you need done. Now, even though I train hard, and I train with some crazy techniques, you have to know your limitations as well. So one of the symptoms of Parkinson's is actually hypertension, where we have low blood pressure, and if I stand up too quickly after exerting myself, I can actually fall down, and you guys will be hearing nothing for the next 15 minutes. So I take my time in getting up. You just got to know your limitations. I'm not saying everybody go out there and throw 100 pounds on your back and do push-ups, but I am saying you should push your limits, and you should train, but then know your limitations. Be safe, right? It took me 7.5 years to build to where I am. Nothing comes overnight. Okay, we're good. Now, these are just representing the classic symptoms of Parkinson's. Okay, I mean, I haven't even mentioned, and Veronique and Stephanie mentioned, but we haven't even talked about constipation. We don't really want to talk about that, but constipation, executive functions, loss of smell, insomnia. I mean, these are other things that people with Parkinson's deal with. Now, it's a clear example, though, that as much Parkinson's has taken away, I've realized that I can gain so much in return. Now, people ask me all the time, hey, do you ever imagine how much faster you can run? How much faster you can cycle? How much more weight you can throw around if you didn't have Parkinson's? Well, my response is simple. I don't think I would have even ran my first marathon if I wasn't diagnosed with Parkinson's. So it truly is a change of mental mindset. It is a commitment to lifestyle change. And it is to be consistent, and this is what makes me the unstoppable force that I am today. Now remember, I talked about that Runner's World magazine on the back of the seat back pocket, in 2012. Well, that moment came in full circle in 2015 when Runner's World published a story about me as I prepared to run the New York City Marathon, almost 4 years after I had picked up the Runner's World by chance. Now, maybe somebody will read this article and it will inspire and move them to move, and then hopefully they can inspire and move others as well. Now, I've never really considered myself as an inspiration. I was doing what I had to slow progression for myself. But along the way, someone stuck a camera in front of me, so I decided to share my experiences and all of my activities because I was given the platform to do so, and I wanted to get others involved. Now, competing on American Ninja Warrior was the most exciting thing I've ever done. It is also the most scary thing I've ever done. Now, unfortunately, stress elevates Parkinson's symptoms. Now, to help me calm down my kids and my wife, they wrote inspirational messages for me that first time I went up on my arm. They used a Sharpie, they wrote on an arm to help calm me down. So if I would get nervous, I would just look down at my arms and I would see their words and it would calm me down. My son wrote, "Finish like a fox." That's great, right? That's awesome. My daughter wrote, "Don't fall." I'm like, thanks. Thank you very much. I think that helps. But you know what? My wife, she wrote, "I'll see you on the other side of fear." Okay, now fear is a mental obstacle that stands between a person trying to obtain a goal. Now, when you start something new, there's fear. But once you do it over and over again, it becomes routine, right? So think about this. When you try something new for the first time, there's always those butterflies in your stomach. You're nervous. You're scared of the unknown, that first new day on the job, right? First date, perhaps even that first kiss. Now for me, once my foot went off the safety of the platform that I was standing on, all of that fear went away. I knew that I was at the mercy of my training and that there is nothing I can do except to trust myself, my training, my faith, my family, and that, of course, then you really realize that, if I don't get to the other side, I'm swimming. So, but none of that, at that time, none of it was about fear. It's just about getting things done. I was faced with 6 obstacles in front of me, and it helps to know that my wife and my kids are on the other side no matter how I get through, swimming or flying through. And all I had to do was focus on their words, and once I was given the green light on American Ninja Warrior for the first time, I literally phased out all the cameras, all the lights, and take it one obstacle at a time. Now, I cannot stop what I'm doing because Parkinson's does not stop. Medication helps, but it never really goes away. I hear, oh, hey, you don't look like a person with Parkinson's, right? Now, this is where educating the public becomes very, very important. Raising awareness is much more important now because people don't see the non-motor symptoms of Parkinson's. Low cholesterol is another one. Cognitive issues, and I mentioned loss of smell. Now, I might be able to compete on a nationally televised competition and run for miles and miles and miles, but these are things that anybody can do. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. These are things that anybody can do. Any of you can do it. You just need to put in the time and training. You need to put in the time and commitment to get it done. But anyone in this room, everyone out there, most everyone, can tie their shoes or button their shirt, okay? Brush their teeth. These are things that just about anybody can do without training and they take for granted. But these are things that people with Parkinson's have difficulty with. So, I don't let that bother me because I don't give up on things simply because I have difficulty. I find another way of doing it. Now, what I've found is that the hardest step to any change is that first step, okay? You have to get yourself mentally ready to take those steps and then consistently take those steps. I set a goal for myself. Once I meet those goals, I don't stop and I keep pushing those goals further out. And it doesn't apply to just American Ninja Warrior. It doesn't apply to living with Parkinson's. It applies to everything that I do in life. Now, looking back, when I was given the initial diagnosis back in 2003, I was scared, I felt depressed. Today, I live with a different mindset. Today, I live with a mindset of hope and joy. Now, these are 2 words that I would never thought that I would associate with Parkinson's disease. Now, with my physical activity, I truly feel that I'm able to slow my progression. I have bought more time for myself. And why is that important? Well, as Veronique mentioned, just a few years ago, 5 short years ago, there were 0 clinical trials classified as disease-modifying. 0, 5 years ago. But today, there are at least 7, with 3 of them passing human safety phases and onto phase 2 clinical trials. Now, that gives me hope. It gives me hope that better treatments are coming. People say, but Jimmy, you're not a typical Parkinson's patient, right? But what does that mean? Was I a typical Parkinson's patient when I was walking with a cane? When I was a typical Parkinson's patient when I would fall and lose my balance? Was I a typical Parkinson's patient when tremors caused people to stare and wonder, why am I so nervous? Especially those darn TSA agents. And their relentless. But you know what? If so, I'm the same son of a gun with the same natural abilities as a cane-wielding 240-pound Jimmy just from 2010. The only difference is that 8 years ago, I believed that Parkinson's was my limitation. Today, I believe that my limitations are only set by the ones that I put onto myself. So maybe the way to think about it is that I am a typical Parkinson's patient, but I am one with an atypical mindset. Now, that atypical mindset, through this journey in these past few years, have helped me find something else, and that's joy. It was something I thought I really couldn't have with Parkinson's, but you know what? Hope and joy. These are 2 words that I live with as much as possible every day, even with Parkinson's. Now, I leave you with this. Michael J. Fox, this is your third Michael J. Fox quote today, by the way. Michael J. Fox says that acceptance doesn't mean resignation, right? So in 2012, back in 2012, I was just a handful of people with Parkinson's doing physical activities like running marathons. Back then, I can probably count it on my two hands how many people were doing this. But today, doing physical activities has changed. I could sit here for hours and hours and tell you stories about people like me, changing perceptions and inspiring others, running marathons, running 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents, actually, walking across America, deadlifting 680 pounds. Okay? So now that you think about it, perhaps I'm not so atypical after all. Perhaps this is the beginning of a new typical Parkinson's patient. Now, there is a movement growing out there with people with and without Parkinson's. And all you have to do to join that movement, and I'm speaking to everybody, is keep moving. Thank you very much.
Now I think we're going to have a panel. Questions, if anybody would like to. Ready? Step up.
Sit anywhere you like. I will move. We also have to buy a new bag, apparently.
So if anyone has any questions, or if the operator would like to open the line from any of those, Charlotte or here. Chris?
So thank you very much. Your story is amazing. And I guess my first question would be, how did you talk to your children about Parkinson's?
Thank you. That's actually a very good question, and I struggled with that. I think it's a lot easier for me to talk to my kids, and of course you can weigh in here as well. It's a lot easier for me to talk to my kids now because they're older. They're 11 and 9 now. But as they're growing up, one of the things is that they've never known me to be without Parkinson's, so this is normal to them. So we try to feed them bits and pieces of information as they're growing up that we feel that they're ready to understand. And they go around in school and they tell their friends about it. So, which I think is good. But when I do have the opportunity to speak to their friends or themselves about additional, I try to relate it to things that they can relate to, like video games, right? I say Parkinson's is a lot like when your Wi-Fi signal is bad. There's a delay in everything, and that's how I try to speak to them about it. And I think it's worked well for now, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And then I think for me, as learning about the diagnosis, that was one of the first things I worried about was how the heck do you tell your kids what it is what Parkinson's disease is, because I don't even understand it. So there's the process of you understanding it, but then how do you tell them what's going on? I think one of the early things that we had to do was for them to not be scared, that he was going to be fine and he was going to be okay, because it's going to happen. He's going to fall. Like he said, it happens all the time and he trains for it, but he's going to be okay. I think one of the greatest things that I ever got to watch was my little girl. We didn't talk about it, but my little girl's going to be an American Ninja Warrior Junior. So that starts next Saturday. But one of the things she had to do was give an interview, and so I asked her, "Sweetie, what do you think about Parkinson's, and how do you feel about it?" And she says, "Well, it's something that hurts Daddy's brain. It makes him off balance, but he's really strong, and I know he can still beat it. He beats it every day." So she has a very different perspective, which to me, who's kind of gone through the journey of, oh my God, what is life going to be like? But she has this perspective of him, of strength and overcoming it and just keep pushing on. So I'm very grateful for that perspective from the kid's side, because he is living this on a daily basis, but he lives with it in a way that I think inspires them to just don't give up, keep going.
She's too kind.
Thank you for sharing your story. The question I have is, how do you balance between being Jimmy, which is a person who has Parkinson's, but also not letting it define you, but also letting it fuel you at the same time? So that it's part of you, but it's not all of you, and balancing between those dichotomies.
Yeah, there is, me. I like to think most of the time I am me, the one that you're meeting today. But then there's also the professional Jimmy. I do work full-time. I'm a chief technology officer for a company for about 3,000 people. And even though the company knows about my diagnosis, it's hard for them to understand when there's clients involved and other people from outside the organization. So I do sometimes still have to play that game of clenching my fists, grabbing onto the podium. So it is tough, but I know that my professional life and my personal life, and this has become my personal life. You guys are all my friends, so this has become my personal life, and this is how I plan to live moving forward. Is that unless I'm in a professional work setting where I'm compensated for for doing my job, this is how I'm going to be, and this is how I'm always going to be. Hopefully that answers your question.
Question, Charlotte.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy. Very inspiring story. My name is John DiMolanta, and I have a fraternity brother and college classmate named Bill Bucklew that I think is good friends with you. But I just was curious, how do you rely on, in addition to your family, you rely on that network to inspire you and help with things?
Yeah, so for those of you, everybody else, Bill Bucklew is a gentleman I talked about that walked across America. He has Parkinson's. He did it in world record pace. At least they're trying to verify that. 67 days, 39 miles a day for 67 straight days. So that's Bill Bucklew that he mentioned. He lives here in Chicago, in Wilmette, actually. He and I are good friends. We have a special relationship, and we have a special relationship with others in our community as well, whether it's Team Fox or just the Parkinson's community. We've become close friends with a lot of people, and we inspire each other. We actually have a private group chat that we have going on that goes on 24 hours a day, nonstop. If any one of us is having difficulty in anything that we're trying to do, hey, my right leg isn't working today. I'm trying to run. I'm trying to do these things. Anybody have any tips? We share these tips with each other. So the support from each other has been a godsend. Really, it's really pushed us along. If any one of us is having a bad day, the rest of us would jump in and say, "Hey, you can get through this. This is what I do when I have days like that," and we're just sharing information to try to help each other along. And it's to the point where, as I mentioned, that my Parkinson's community, my Team Fox friends have become my family. And we have a really special relationship, and it's continued to help me push along. And I think that group will continue to grow, and hopefully, if we all will help each other push the message and push the need and move the needle forward as it goes along. But thank you for mentioning that. Bill's a great guy. He and I have a special relationship where we pretty much insult each other every time we see each other. But it's all in good competition. When I got an American Ninja Award, he decided to go walk across America. So I don't know what I'm going to do next. Maybe I'll go to space. But Ken's already done that.
But just to touch upon that community that we talked about, Parkinson's is tiring. It's exhausting. It's something we live with today, and I think in the first years of diagnosis, I think that's what was exhausting about it, was that we were isolated and we didn't talk about it. So every day it became a burden. But once we did open up and we kind of shared, whether as a care partner or as a patient, one living with Parkinson's, then it was easier because it was normal for us to talk about these symptoms. It wasn't like this big taboo thing, and it wasn't, they just knew. They knew what we had to live through every day. And at least for me, like somebody coming to his defense because nobody wanted to sit him next to the plane because he's shaking. You know, there was more outrage about it online than for me. And that's what I'm thankful for, because it's not just me. It's not just me that have to speak up for him or be an advocate. There's now a lot more people doing that.
And I'll also add, I think Jimmy and also Bill, who we just talked about, they have become such an inspiration for the Team Fox community. There are people that are, running their first 5K or now hosting an event in their community, coming out with their Parkinson's diagnosis, because it's not that scary anymore. And I think the people like Jimmy and Bill and some of our other amazing Team Fox community that have Parkinson's, they're helping the rest of the community through vocalizing their story and coming together and being a part of that community together. So it's really special and important. So thank you.
I have a question in Dallas. My name's Dolores McDonald. And Jimmy, I like the quotes of acceptance and your mindset of hope and joy. Your wife there with you and your family are so supportive of you. It sounds like she challenges you to be the best you can be. Can you share with us that relationship, that support that she provides?
I'm going to let her speak to that.
So he had talked about that mindset and kind of changing the way you look at the disease. And I think early on in the disease, I kind of left him to it. I didn't know what to do about it. But after that rock bottom moment, one of the things that I quickly realized was I shouldn't be standing in the sidelines with it as well. So I have a daily mantra, and I call it's PACER. It's an acronym. I'm not a pacer for him because I can't run. But PACER, and that P is I'm a partner. So I'm a partner for him in terms of how he manages his life, his medication. I mentioned, we talked about our fundraising. I'm an advocate, so whether speaking for him and getting people more aware about the disease, but an advocate, and I share with him in the fundraising, my strength is organizing and putting together programs. I organize our Shake It Off 5K fundraiser that has reached over $250,000 to date. C is I'm a cheerleader, so that was something I never thought I would be in high school. But I am out in the streets with him when he's running, when he's out in those races. I'm cheering for him. And E is empower. I cannot do all these things for him, but I can help make it happen on the day-to-day basis. And because, like I said, Parkinson's is every day. So R is repeat. So we get to start tomorrow.
Can they still see my slides? I'd like to share one thing. No. Is it possible? If not, it's okay. Just let me know. Okay. Right here, this photo right here says it all. It says it all. So I'm running, and I have a smile on the face, and the camera is centered and focused on me. But look to the right. Who's back there? Okay. She's back there at every one of my events. I mentioned 100-something half marathons, 15 marathons, and Ninja Warrior, whatever it was. She's always there. She's my biggest supporter. Thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
We have another question in Charlotte.
Hi, my name is Kathy Ivy. I'm a director in our diversity and inclusion organization, and I support our ERGs. And I'm so thankful for our Diversibilities ERG inviting you here and bringing your fantastic story, an inspiring story. I have a 14-year-old who thinks she can't do anything, so I'm definitely going to show her your video. Yes, you can. You can do it, and you're able-bodied, so I want to see you do it. My question was a little bit, and I think you may have already touched on it, about the caregiver and how you take care of yourself as a caregiver. I know that's one of Diversibility's focus areas here at TIAA, is not only to ensure our employees feel safe, but also how do we support the caregivers. So just want to hear a little bit about what's that support system.
Yeah, that's
Okay. I guess from my side as the care partner, it is still that community. So just as there's a community for people living with Parkinson's, there's also a community, I'm going to call it the wives, the abandoned wives, for all the crazy shenanigans like him and Bill do. But we talk because it is one of the things that, at least for me, is, how do you talk to the kids about it? What's normal, what's not normal. At least my early questions in that community for other care partners was, I think it was, when do you know if you're talking to Parkinson's or when is it your husband or your spouse? Because I think that's really been the difficult part of it in the early years, where I'm like, oh my God, is this my husband now? Is this what it's going to be? Like he said, he was angry all the time. And is that Parkinson's? Is that his new personality? How do I adjust to that? Thank God it's not that. But there's still going to be moments, and I think that's where, just living with it and getting educated and getting in touch with more other care partners to say, might want to give that some time or something to talk to your doctor about. Is that a PD symptom, or, is that, it's just old age, he's just angry, it's just, there's just that stress too. But it is very much about education, and it's all about that connection to community and being able to reach out at a moment's notice to being able to ask those questions.
And as the one being cared for, we do take a lot of trips because we do a lot of events that aren't at home and we travel. Every once in a while, I do want to make sure that she does take care of herself as well. And I say, go get your massage, go get your, I'll take the kids, and then we'll drive each other crazy, and she can relax. But and she doesn't always take advantage of that because I know she wants to hang out with us. At least that's what I like to think. But at the same time, from a patient's perspective, we have to know, and we talk about this in our group, that we've got to give our caregivers a break. That's important for not to be living in that mindset 24/7, 7 days a week.
There's another question in Charlotte.
Hey Jimmy, how you doing? I was just curious, is there anything besides the exercise that you do that really makes you feel good? Any kind of treatment, something you're excited about moving forward?
My wife just whispered food. So I do take I do still take medication. I still get involved in some clinical trials wherever I qualify, because I've done so many. I'm pretty much unqualified to do any of the newer clinical trials. But medication is still a big part of my treatment plan. Having a good care team is a huge part. Having a movement disorder specialist that supports what I'm doing in terms of my physical activity and the things I'm trying to achieve is a big part of it. We already mentioned the support group, my Team Fox support group. Those all play in a role. But I think research shows that as of right now, even though with medication that's available, they only mask the symptoms. And that exercise is truly the only treatment that's proven to slow progression of the disease. And that's my primary focus. So I spend a lot of time of my day in the gym working out. But it's the same thing at the same time, as I mentioned, I'm still on medication. Compared to just 4 or 5 years ago, I take half the medication that I do now. But I still rely on them for when times that I'm not doing physical activity.
Can I just say something that one of the resources we have at Nuveen and TIAA that I just want to mention, it's really excellent, are the counselors through Redbird Health. As a caregiver, I've made use of that resource. Even if there's not a community that I can go to, there's a person at the other end of the line that has tips for how to deal with the stress. And it's out there for anybody, so I just wanted to mention it.
Thank you.
It's a great resource. Stress is one of the biggest things, and I think just from a care partner's perspective, you will keep going because there's stuff to be done. But my thing for stress is my green tea. He knows this. That's my end of the day. Just kind of sit back and reflect. But that's my me time. But certainly having a counselor that can just listen, I think that is just a huge help. Just to listen, somebody to listen and vent it out.
We have a question in Charlotte.
You had mentioned the word impact.
Can you stand up so they can see?
Sure. You had mentioned the word impact, and I just didn't know if maybe there's a little bit more color you could shed on sort of the foundation's impact. I know it all goes to research, but what exactly does that mean locally, nationally? Yeah.
So I'll take this one. So we're really an international organization. We interact with everyone within the Parkinson's field. I think one of the things that's unique about being a private organization is that we can be sort of uniquely positioned. We don't make a profit from the medications that go out there, and sometimes we can have influence on things that that someone who really needs, like their work depends on a profitable drug coming to market, then they have less opportunity sometimes to do some of the projects that just lift the whole field in general. So you think of finding a cure from the time a scientist has an idea in the night as being letter A, and from the time that there is a pill in your hand, that's letter Z. There's lots of different players along those 26 letters of the alphabet, and each player has kind of a unique niche level expertise, and these scientists are absolutely brilliant. I'm not a scientist by background, and I assumed, and sometimes you'll see Michael talking about this, that there was a department of cures, that there was someone whose job it was to make sure that all of these steps, these next steps, from letter to letter, was a seamless series of handoffs. And actually, when we came on the scene, Debbie Brooks, who's co-founder of our organization with Michael, her background is business, and she was like, her assumption also was that there was someone who was coordinating this massive series of handoffs, and in fact, we found that was a unique opportunity for us to shepherd the science along and make sure all of those connections and collaborations were being made. Sometimes we'll do a call for applications, and we'll get 700, and we'll read one, and the idea is brilliant, but they're missing a link of how to get it done. But we know those guys in Boston are doing it, and so we'll make partnerships because we're sort of uniquely positioned to kind of know who all the players are, what the whole field is, and where are those gaps that if we just fill those connections, fill those gaps, that everything, the whole process of research could move much more quickly. And just because you have a good business plan doesn't guarantee that you're going to get to a cure faster, and we have been relieved to see that, in fact, what once it might take 27 years for an idea to actually become a therapy, we've been able so far to cut those times in half, and we're hoping to even make them move more quickly. Biology is hard, and so there are some things that just come down to science and learning step by step, but we've seen the acceleration just really grow, which is incredibly exciting. The field is very united, and so there are opportunities. There's not just one egg in the basket. There are multiple pathways to better new treatments, living well with Parkinson's, and to cures. And you comment sometimes, I guess I've been around long enough that you used to go to the big conferences and you would see people in wheelchairs and with canes and with a great deal of disability and complication, and now you go and you see much less of that, and it isn't because those people aren't showing up, it's because we're managing the disease better. And a cure will probably be multiple things that we're doing all in conjunction, and so we're trying to approach it in that way, like let's help in every direction we can. I think over the next years we're going to see that living well with Parkinson's, there's more possibilities until eventually it will be the realities of getting that diagnosis will be much different. So there's promise on many levels. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, that was great. I appreciate it.
I have a question. For anybody that might be struggling with coming out about their diagnosis or coming forward with it, maybe in the workplace or anything like that, what advice would you give to them? Anybody struggling with that decision?
Well, as I mentioned, I struggled with that myself for the first 8 years, right? Coming out and being open. My advice is that mind-blown moment that I shared. I always like to tell that story because that one little thing that what took me just a month to achieve, completely outweighs 8 years of time wasted. So that's the story that I like to tell. But certainly, know your own environment. It's depending on your occupation and things that you do. Sometimes it is, it is a good time or a really bad time to come out at work. Again, just depending on what you do. But to educate yourself, to know your environment, but always turn. Especially for those working in a larger organization, always turn to HR, human resources. They're there to help you. And they provide, especially with own experience at my company, they're there to provide you with guidance and hopefully, and most of them are impartial, right, between you and your superiors. So that's. I hope that's okay.
Anything else from anyone? All right, well, we have something for you, Jimmy. Oh, my goodness. Wow. This is the Diversibilities Employee Research Group Outstanding Partner Award of Excellence.
Thank you.
Awarded to you. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And thanks everybody in all the other cities and conference rooms. Thank you very much. Really appreciate this opportunity.
So thanks everyone. I want to thank all of our guests. Starting in Charlotte, Catherine Wesley, John Hunt from the Michael J. Fox Foundation, a special guest in Charlotte with his caregiver, Leanne Waite. Thank you for joining us. Here in Chicago, Stephanie, Veronique, thank you very much for your presentation as well. I'd like to acknowledge a few people here at TIAA. First, Joe Jones and Amy Dermer, thank you for your support. Thank you very much for the TIA Nuveen and Charlotte IT teams for making all this possible. This is absolutely, absolutely fantastic to get so many people together for the event. Special thanks to Chuck for bringing TIA Nuveen and Diversibility, the Fox Foundation, and Jimmy and Cheryl together. And finally, a very special thanks to Jimmy and Cheryl for sharing your stories with us. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining again. Diversibilities is a fantastic employee research group. Tell your friends, spread the word. Hopefully, we can be a pacer for many of us in the organization, to be a partner, to be an advocate, to be a cheerleader, to empower, and to do that every day. I'll send you off with my final takeaway from this. It's to be better. So let's go out and be better. Thanks, everyone, again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.